ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ओं विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So here it is very important to note what binds the living entity to this material world. The living entity actually does not belong to this material world at all. The spirit soul is completely different from matter. But then how he becomes bound in this material world? So that explanation is given here. That actually the living entity becomes bound by the attraction of between male and female. How this bondage increases is already explained in the Bhagavatam earlier itself. Pumsam Striya, when they come together, Pumsam means male, Striya means female. Maithuni bhavam etat, and when they are attracted to each other on bodily platform, for Maithuna, driven by sex impulse, Tayo mitho hriday granthi rahu, that creates a knot by which the living entity becomes bound to this material body and to this material world. Further, more knots are created later on. Atah grahshetra sutapta vidyar janasya mohoyam aham ameti. So that is all sequential. One by one, more knots, me and mine. So beginning with attraction between male and female. Now why this analysis is given in Bhagavatam? So that we can understand the primary cause of our bondage in this material world. Primary cause. So once we understand the primary cause of bondage in this material world, we can try to address it and become beware of it. That is why the whole goal of spiritual life, whole practice what we do, beginning from brahmacharya, is to control this desire. Because if we do not control, and if we get engaged into all these activities, then our consciousness becomes completely bound to this material world. Then we are covered by Maya. So if we are covered by Maya, we are driven by this understanding on bodily platform. Whatever activities we will do, it will be on bodily platform. And bodily platform means bondage, suffering. So, if we have to understand that I am spirit soul, I am part and parcel of Krishna, then this natural attraction which is given to us in this material world, that is what it is said here. Apart from the Supreme Lord who came in the form of Nar Narayana Rishi, no one, including even Brahma, is immune to this attraction. So it's not an ordinary attraction. Everyone should understand. Do not take it for granted. Prabhupada is saying, right from Brahma to insignificant ant, everyone is driven by this impulse. So, one should know and understand that this is a great cause of bondage. Earlier also we saw Lord Kapila describing, if we, instead of decreasing this attraction, we try to increase it by associating with people who are attached to women, then we are paving our pathway to hellish life, degraded life. So the solution is also given. Lord Kapila also gave the solution. We find in Bhagavatam. If one associates with great personalities, then this attraction, it can become slackened. It can become slackened. Actually, we are already too late. We should have started this practice of not getting attracted to women and a woman not getting attracted to men right from the beginning of our life. That was the Vedic system. That right from the age of 5, the children were sent to Gurukul. And in the Gurukul, one of the most important training apart from Swadhyaya is self-control. And they were trained to act for the benefit of the spiritual master, Guru Hitam. So Prabhupada says these 3 things were very important. Swadhyaya, reading of the Vedic literatures. Second, self-control. And third, to act on behalf of the spiritual master for his benefit. So, what happens when the living entities were trained like this? When they grow up with this training, they have learned how to control their senses. And at that point of time, it does not matter whether one continues as a brahmachari or one enters into a grahastha life or he takes sannyas. What is important is one has to become jitendriya. He has to come to the point of controlling his senses, Goswami. When Lord Brahma was speaking to Maharaj Priyavrata, who was trained under the direction of Narada Muni. So by the preachings of Narad Muni, Maharaj Priyavrata had advanced in his spiritual life and he became very detached from material affairs. So when his own father, Swayambhu Manu, when he saw that there is no one to take care of the kingdom after the Prachetas, Swayambhu Manu had these two sons. One was King Uttanpad, another was Priyavrata. So we know King Uttanpad had his son Dhruva, and then the descendants of Dhruva is the Prachetas. So after the Prachetas, there was no more lineage further. So there was no one to become a king. So Swayambhu Manu was worried. And he knew that Uttanpad's brother, Priyavrata, he is in Gandhamadan Parvata, performing austerities, devotional service under the direction of Narad Muni. So he went there and asked Maharaj Priyavrata that you please return. You should enter into a household life and you should rule this world. So Maharaj Priyavrata did not appreciate this advice of his father very much. He did not want to enter into household life. He did not want to enter into becoming a king. He just wanted to proceed further with his advancement in spiritual life under the direction of Narad Muni. So knowing this, Lord Brahma personally descended from Brahma Loka to convince Maharaj Priyavrata. So one of the very important advice which Maharaj Priyavrata was given by Lord Brahma is very important. So he gives him two examples. He says, there is a person who is Ajita Indriya. He has not learned to conquer his senses. He is Ajita Indriya. One who has not conquered, mastered over his senses. One who has no control. He has not learned self-control. He says, even if he goes from one forest to another, he will be still having the fear of material bondage. He cannot get rid of the fear of material bondage. He says, because even if he renounces his family, his wife and children, he is still living with 6 co-wives. He is falsely thinking he has renounced his wife and children and he has gone to forest. But because he is Ajita Indriya, he is still living with 6 co-wives. Uncontrolled mind and uncontrolled 5 senses. So still there is bondage for him. And then he says, whereas one who is trained as a Jitendriya, one who has learned how to control his senses, for him who is self-satisfied and a learned man, there is no harm even if he enters into a household life, because he has conquered his senses. You see. So what is important is not whether we are brahmachari, we are grahastha, we are vanaprastha, we are sannyasi. What is important is jitendriya. If you can learn to control your senses as a brahmachari, very good. Just like Prabhupada gave the example in the life of Gajendra. Gajendra was an animal of the land. Unfortunately, he entered into another arena which was not his arena. He entered into water, which was the land of crocodile. So there he was captured by crocodile. And day by day, after the crocodile captured Gajendra, the elephant, the power of the senses of this elephant, Gajendra, was decreasing day by day. His enthusiasm, his energy, the power of his senses, because he had no food. Whereas day by day, the crocodile was getting stronger in his senses, in his determination, in his energy. So in that context, Prabhupada explains this. Actually, at that point of time when Prabhupada was writing this purport, there were some incidences in Krishna consciousness where Prabhupada had given sannyas to many of his disciples, and they fell down, ran away with some woman. They left Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada points this out in the purport of that very beautiful example, that a devotee who is trying to progress in Krishna consciousness should always be aware that his enthusiasm, his energy, his determination is not decreasing. It should always be increasing. So if in one situation he finds it is decreasing, there is no harm in changing the situation and seeing that in another situation he can improve in his condition. Because see, after all, what is important is we have to learn to control our senses. That is what is important. So brahmacharya is the beginning of that control. One learns. So, in that sense, Lord Brahma was able to convince Maharaj Priyavrata that he does not have to fear. One who is controlled in his senses can walk fearlessly anywhere in the world. So this example is very, very important example. That one who is Ajita Indriya, he may renounce his family life, but he is still living with 6 co-wives. And he still has fearful condition in his life because these uncontrolled senses will only lead him to bondage, even if he has renounced his life, material life. Whereas, if somebody is Jitendriya, he has learned to control his senses, for him it does not matter whether he remains a brahmachari, he is a sannyasi, he is a grahastha, it does not matter. One who has learned to control his senses. And even if such a person circumstantially has to enter into a grahastha life, Lord Brahma is telling Priyavrata, he does not have to fear. He can walk fearlessly anywhere in the world because his senses are under his control. So actually this is very important. So in our initial stages of life, till we have become Jitendriya, it is very important that we have self-control. We avoid certain circumstances which will agitate our mind and our senses. First of all, the best is out of sight, out of mind. But then it may not be very practical. Right? It may not be very practical. Because in Krishna consciousness, we have to deal with so many material objects. We have to deal with women, we have to deal with money. So there, one has to be cautious. We have to learn to catch the fish without becoming wet. That is the art we have to learn. If you become wet, then better don't go to catch fish. This should be the discrimination. So if we find that certain services we are carrying out, let us say you become a preacher and you have to sit on a table and you find that mostly only ladies are approaching a brahmachari and getting distracted, then you should better avoid such kind of services, isn't it? Say for example, you are a preacher and you have to go out. Now it is very difficult. Sometimes if you don't preach to both husband and wife and you want some donation, and you will find that actually sometimes they have to take a combined decision. Isn't it? And sometimes it may be that mostly it is the woman in the house. She is home minister. And she may have to decide whether to give donation or not. And if you are able to convince only the husband, it may not be possible that you will get any money, any donation. So you may have to deal. But there the brahmachari has to be very, very careful. One, he should not go alone. These are all very practical considerations. We should not become Paramahamsas. See, both the things are, both extremes should be avoided. One is, I don't want to see any woman. Anybody, if he is telling any woman is coming, he changes his path and goes, that means he has too much of negative attraction. That is also very dangerous. One has to be very practical. If you find somebody like this, some woman is coming and he changes and goes somewhere else, that means something is wrong. No, Prabhupada is not taught like this. We have to be very practical in our spiritual life. Isn't it? It's like if you read one of the conversations where some of the brahmacharis approached Prabhupada, some of the sannyasis approached Prabhupada, that there are women in the temple, what should we do? Prabhupada said, then you go to the forest. Because in practical life you will not be able to avoid. It is not possible. And then Prabhupada gave example, you have to go out, you will meet so many women. Isn't it? So, see, the important thing is two things. One is regulation and at the same time intense absorption in Krishna's service. Intense. There is no doubt about it that, what is that saying? Empty mind? Something else it is. Devil's workshop. Khali dimag, shaitan ka ghar. So what is required is very intense engagement for our senses. There are only two things. Senses can never be idle. Understand this. Never be idle. They require engagement. So only two options. Either you engage them materially or spiritually. If you leave them idle means it is material engagement. They will not leave you. They are considered by Prabodhananda Saraswati has compared them to venomous serpent. If they bite, death. Nothing less than that. That is how they are durdanta, very, very formidable they are. Kala Sarpa Patali. It is like Kala Sarpa. So what is required is, if you can remove those poisonous fangs, if you can remove the poisonous fangs, then it is no more dangerous at all. See? And that poisonous fangs can be removed only if you engage in service of the Lord. These senses have to be engaged positively. Param drishtva nivartate. When they will start tasting, when the eyes will start appreciating the beauty of the Lord, you will automatically forget the beauty of this world. There is no other way. When your tongue starts tasting, chanting the holy name of the Lord, you'll forget all prajalpas. You'll have no time for sitting and gossiping so many material subject matters. So these are all practical considerations we should see. So if there are certain services where you'll have to deal with women, and if your mind is agitated, you should approach your authority and tell Prabhu, I am disturbed. Better can you change my service to something else? Isn't it like that? So as I was saying, certain practical things can be adopted. Never, brahmachari should never plan to go alone. It's not advisable at all. We have seen this actually. They end up in horrible, miserable attachments. So, if we take care of this, that intense absorption in our sadhana and our seva, and certain restraint in our practical day-to-day life, one can easily overcome these attractions of the senses. Then it is possible. Just like Yamunacharya, Prabhupada gives the example of Yamunacharya. He has come to that level. He says, from the time my mind has become absorbed, yad avadhi mama chitta krishna padare vindayo. It has become absorbed. That is the whole thing. Mind has become engaged in service of the Lord. And what will be the result? If your mind, what the result is, how to understand your mind is absorbed. Every moment you will be tasting more and more, newer and newer rasas. You will be very enthused. When you find you are enthusiastic to carry out more and more service for Krishna, you should understand that your mind has become absorbed now in service of the Lord. And that is the result. Result will be, you will be more and more hankering. I want to do more. And the more you want to be reluctant space out, waste time, here and there, not engaged. You should understand you are gripped by Maya. Gripped by Maya. Distaste. So then what will happen? Maya will dictate after some time. What are you doing here? What are you doing in Krishna consciousness? This is not a place for you. Go out. Maya will dictate. It's a fact. So, we have to be cautious. Prabhupada says, this positive thing is very important. So many no's will not work. Yes will work. There is one very interesting conversation about Gurukul, how the children should be trained. Not in more no's. Similarly, even in our folk preaching, this should be our attitude. In our preaching to the people also, we should not introduce too many no's. This is very important thing. Otherwise, people will not be inclined to take to Krishna consciousness. Oh, everything no. No this, no this, no this. Isn't it? 4 no's is more than enough. No meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. Apart from that, only yes. So Prabhupada is saying, don't bring many no's. Give them positive life. Then it will be automatically no. In the beginning, don't bring so many no's. Automatically, when they become engaged positively in Krishna conscious life, all no's will go away automatically. Just like I remember myself, nobody told me leave tea and coffee. Nobody told me. When I came to Krishna consciousness, gradually when I was attending classes, I was attending kirtan, everything, automatically. Isn't it? And if you say no, that will be struggle. This is the psychology. Positive engagement is devotional service. So if they are attracted by devotional service, other things will be automatically no. Param drishtva nivartate. Just like Ekadashi, we observe fasting. There are many patients in the hospital, they are also fasting. But they will, no, within their heart, if I get, I shall eat, I shall eat. But those who are devotees, voluntarily no. Same fasting is going on for devotees and hospital patient. And that no and this no, there is difference. Param drishtva nivartate. Devotees is saying no because he is enjoying higher pleasure. Patient is saying no because he has no other means. If he eats, he will fall sick. He cannot, he has to avoid. Isn't it? So much difference is there. So, this is a very important verse where Lord Kapila is explaining the primary cause of entanglement in this material world, and we have to address this primary cause in a practical manner in Krishna consciousness. So we'll stop with this Granthra, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.